Hi, I'm Kaylin Pryor, and I'm here to do my artifact analysis, which will complete my Master's of Education here at National University. All right, so starting with the table of contents. First, I want to just introduce myself, a little bit of background, my goals for the program. Next, we'll jump into addressing the program learning outcomes, PLOs as I'll call them. And we'll just do like a quick synopsis of the PLO alignments, which is just a grid of the courses I took, and then whether the PLOs have been introduced, developed, or mastered. Next, we'll head into the real meat of the presentation, so the artifact analysis, in which we'll be going through the 10 slides, which will represent the 10 courses. And I will address the specific artifact in question, address the PLOs, and then tell you where I'm at with them. And then lastly, I just wanted to go over some program highlights, what I've learned, how my goals align at the end of the program, and what I can take with me in the future. All right, so a little short intro. Starting with my background. Number one, I've always loved to work with kids. I got 2 toddlers now, but I grew up nannying from a young age, babysitting into nannying, and most recently been getting more involved in community outreach. I help out. I live in Lake Tahoe area, so I'm very driven to the outdoors, so I like to help in different conservation outreach programs around the lake. Clean Up the Lake is one of them. Keep Tahoe Blue is very big, but also one of them, and some other things like that. And so coming from a young age, I've been very STEM focused. And what I mean by STEM focus is I just ask the question why about everything. Why is the sky blue? Why do the waters and the rivers raise in the spring? Why do animals migrate? Why do all these things happen? Which led me into, first I wanted marine biology, and then I get seasick, so living on a boat might not work. Then I went into biology, and I wasn't really into the memorization, and I took a chemistry class, and it clicked. The math made sense. Everything in it made sense to me, and I got really interested in the molecular level and how atoms interact and what their ways of communication, if you will, are. So I ended up getting my master's in chemistry in 2017. And then with that, in my master's program, I performed research, but also after research and industry. And it wasn't really providing enjoyment. I was always involved in, always working for an environmental-based company, whether that be managing a service team for an air sampling company, or my latest was working as a chemist for the city of Incline, in which I provided and made sure the community had clean drinking water and also managed the wastewater, but it just wasn't doing it. So about a year ago, I enrolled in the teacher credentialing program because I really wanted to be a high school chemistry teacher. I thought that would be fun. Getting students excited about science. And 4 courses in, I started to think about how do I take my passion for the youth, outdoors, and STEM, and how can I make this my own? And I started coming up with these goals. So I wanted to become a business owner. I wanted to possibly open a preschool, whether that's a forest school, Waldorf-inspired school. I also really thought it would be fun to open, not necessarily a school, but somewhere where adult learners can go and learn about the your local environment, your local community, especially this area, and get involved in community outreach. And so it really landed me in the MAE program, and I'm happy that I made the decision to switch over. All right, so jumping in, project learning outcomes, or PLOs. This section is just going to address the PLOs in which National University made for the Master's of Education program. All right, number 1, integrate advanced approaches to instruction, assessment, and learning using digital tools and skills. 2, design learning experiences that include learner characteristics, principles of customized learning, and assessment as learning. 3, apply practitioner research methods to study and inform instruction in traditional and digital learning environments. 4, develop reflective practices that are grounded in current learning, science research, professional ethics, and include pathways to continuous growth. So these are the 4 PLOs that we're going to go through. And then for each artifact, we're going to have to align them. So as you can see, I have all of the PLOs on the grid, and then I have the 10 courses I took and the alignment I have. So I for introduced, D for developed, and M for mastered. So heading right into the PLO analysis, the following slides is going to go over the previous grid. So we're going to go over, each course is going to have its own assigned slide. So there'll be 10 slides in general. I'm going to say if it's introduced, developed, or mastered. All right, starting with MAE 610, plan a study and practitioner research. The artifact I selected was the source practitioner research assignment. And in this assignment, we were to employ a literature research review in order to better understand the formulated research question. My formulated research question was to explore the relationship between the implementation of experience-based learning and problem solving and the measurement of critical thinking skills in high school students. So with that, I analyzed a peer review research study or a paper by looking at the research question, the participants of the paper, not of my research question, and then dove into the methods, measures, procedures, findings, and limitations. So I thought this aligned nicely with PLO3, which is applying practitioner research methods to study and inform instruction in both traditional and in digital learning environments. And I gave myself an introduced/developed for a specific reason. So this was actually the 5th course I took during my program because, like I said, I came in as the credentialing teacher program. So I thought this was more developed based on the fact that I had 4 previous courses. I already had to develop research questions, employ literature reviews, and so on. So the develop part really comes from, I got to dive deeper into the methods, procedures, findings, and limitations. I also was able to summarize my thoughts into a single document, APA formatted, and was able to provide further analysis on implications such as further research. So the little snippets I grabbed from this artifact were just a review of the original source research study. What was studied? What questions did they ask? Things that stuck out to me was they wanted to enhance education and learning quality. They stimulated creativity and critical thinking, and they wanted students to apply acquired knowledge to develop new ideas and thinking skills. And that's the one that really stood out for me. So moving into the findings, they took that theoretical acquired knowledge and they applied it into practical mechatronics and technological experience. So this environment/project-based learning allowed students to take theoretical knowledge and then apply it to a hands-on environment using their critical thinking skills. Another part of this this study that I thought was interesting and also important is that not only did they have to do this first step, they also did a second step in which they worked as a group to solve a problem together. And I think that part's really important to address because us as adults all need to learn how to not work as a team, but be able to work and have positive working relationships with people regardless of the situation. All right, moving right along, ITL 600. This was actually the first course I took in my program, and the artifact I selected was the cultural iceberg, as you can see here, pictured as this tree. I know some of the words, and the words are small, you're not able to see them, but I wanted to give the bigger picture of above ground. So you have the branches, the leaves, flowers, etc., fruits on a tree, and then below the ground you have the roots. So it's essentially, above is what we see and below is what we don't see. I thought this assignment aligned very well with 1 and 4, PLO 1 and 4. 1 being integrating advanced approaches to instruction, assessment, and learning using digital tools. This could be something I can employ to students, whether it be toddlers or adults, having them reflect on themselves, which leads into number 2, developing reflective practices. So not only did I make use of digital tools by creating a personal cultural iceberg in order to better relate it to myself and understand myself to relate to students and peers, I also had a deeper look at myself and created a visual representation of not only what my personal iceberg looks like, but I was able to reflect and become better aware of my biases, which makes me more open to possibility, change, and continuous growth. So on my personal iceberg, as you can see, the branches, above ground is things like hobbies, food preferences, music preferences, the language I speak, or even self-appearance. But below ground or below the iceberg is, some topics that are tricky to navigate: parenting methods, marriage, finances, working practices, or spiritual awareness, things that maybe I don't want to talk about in an open environment as much, but I need to address them in order to limit my biases. So ITL 604, Learners in Learning 1, I jumped right in and selected the artifact of ELL, or English Language Learner Supports and Strategies. I assigned, what this was a 4-week assignment. So each week in our course, we kind of built on the assignment. And that's why I gave this an introduce and also a developed alignment. PLO2 is the design of learning experiences that can include characteristics, principles of learning, and also an assessment as learning. So the rationale for my artifact was, not only was I introducing and designing learning strategies for students, specifically ELL students, but I also began assessing students. So the first couple weeks focused on assessing assets and identifying the gaps in a specific focus student. And then I jumped into providing supports to fill those gaps and strategies to help my students succeed. So since I'm not teaching, I chose a focus student that was given via paragraph by my instructor. And what I wanted to focus on was, she had assets. She liked to take notes. She was quiet, but she was also very involved. She was very intelligent. Her parents did not speak English, so she didn't have a lot of experience in using English at home. And lastly, she, I would say, suffered maybe from what was in the paragraph called anxiety, but also could be shown as just nervousness. She didn't show up for class a lot. So some things in the gap identification that I focused on was how can I employ SEL techniques? How can I have a softer approach? Could she benefit from one-on-one time? And so the supports I needed to fill these gaps I chose was, she enjoys taking notes. So how can I supply color coding or, provide a planner? Can I provide a source of technology? Or can I contact her parents via an interpreter to limit the language barrier? I can talk to them in my language and they can talk in their language and we can get across effectively. So my suggested strategies, which, goes in line with the PLO and how can principles of learning and assessment as learning. So I can utilize notes and handouts from class to advance her English. I can work with her using technology. The text-to-speech option is phenomenal. Self-reflective. How can I, in my learning, my lesson planning, help her become a better student by choosing vocabulary words or choosing language that can keep her involved, or choosing experiences or examples that will involve her or other ELL students? And lastly, provide opportunities for success. How can I schedule meetings with her? If she does have anxiety and doesn't want to be around other students, what time works best for her? Or how can I make group projects easier? Things like that I think we as instructors really need to think about. All right, moving into ITL 606, Learners in Learning 2. Again, I focused on, so my selected artifact was learning theories. And in learning theories, what we had to do was create a digital presentation of various learning theories. What those consisted of were differentiated instruction, transformational learning, inclusive education, SEL, constructivism, behaviorism, and cognitivism. And again, PLL2, and I gave myself developed on this one because I practiced and I made progress from the previous course, Learners in Learning 1. So the rationale for this artifact was, we had to give explanations to why and how these learning theories were important. And we also had to dive into each learning theory, explaining how they would help a focused student, how they could benefit from added instructions, or encourage to ask questions like this: will this hurt the student? Will this benefit the classroom or just the student? How will this work? So one topic I wanted to focus on and pull from the artifact was social and emotional learning. I think social emotional learning is really beneficial in life in general. I think adults can learn from it. I think kids can learn from it. But most importantly, I think that teaching this at a young age will only make positive impacts on students and their personal lives, their educational lives, their any part of their life. So with SEL, we focus on social awareness, self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, responsible decision-making, and relationship skills. And so part of the presentation is connecting these learning strategies, or learning theories rather, to the UDL, or the Universal Design for Learning. So we can focus on the why of learning, the what and the how. So the why, we have the engagement, how SEL will impact every area of the child or young adult or even an adult. in their learning experience. The what of learning, representation. How can we model vocabulary to enhance the classroom? And the how of learning, action and expression. So how can we model communication? How can we show them how to overcome difficult emotions or even diffuse social situations? These are all skills that we as humans need and hopefully will master over our lives, but why not give kids a break and help them out earlier on? All right, ITL 608, Design and Process of Teaching. This class was really important and influential for me because I'm not currently teaching and I'm not a teacher, and I think, as of now, and I think that this class and the instructor that taught this class was so wonderful in taking the time, and also the people who were in the class with me to help and guide me through this selected artifact, which was planning a lesson. Again, it was a 4-week thing. We started on week 1 and we kind of worked our way through, but the processes that we had to include were California content standards, EL standards, prior knowledge, a big question, concept, skills, tasks, instructional strategies, tools and supports, learning objectives, student misconceptions, and more. I mean, there was a lot to this artifact. I really thought that it was developed for PLO 1, which was integrating advanced approaches to instruction, assessment, and learning, where PLO 2, I feel like it mastered. I had enough experience with PLO 2 designing learning experiences that included learner characteristics, principles of customized learning, and assessments. So the rationale for this artifact was not only did I complete a lesson plan for grades 9 through 10, an introductory chemistry course, students were asked to organize and create their own periodic table. I included an interactive lecture complete with videos to give students a visual on the overview of why this topic's important and influential. And I provided multiple forms of teaching so every student feels involved, heard, and understood. All right, so jumping into the actual artifact, some questions I had were, what is a periodic table? How can we use the periodic table to determine different characteristics of elements? And that was the thought I really wanted to prove. Students look at a periodic table and they're like, oh my goodness, what is going on? But if you actually understand how the trends on a table work, you can predict chemical reactions. And that is the point I wanted to get across in this. So I provided a skill, which was very simple, and just find the following elements based on their atomic number. I provided the teacher's response and the student's response. And the part of this assignment that stuck out to me the most, and which is why I wanted to include it, was how we had to think of some possible misconceptions. Again, I'm not a teacher. I do not write lesson plans on a daily basis. I think that this part was amazing in that we had to say what possible misconceptions were, understanding the importance. Maybe they're like, why do I care? Model using the table. How do I go about using a periodic table? There's plenty of interactive periodic tables online that I could pull from and show them all the different trends and characteristics. And lastly, there's a real struggle in determining the difference between the atomic mass and the atomic number of an element. And so how can I think of ways to help the students understand this better? I don't want to get flustered as a teacher up in front of the class, and so thinking about different possibilities to help them navigate this uncomfortable topic would be helpful. All right, moving quite along. ITL 660, Identity, Inclusion, and Equity. The selected artifact I chose was the action research proposal, which not only did I have to create a research question, but I had to analyze multiple references, peer-reviewed articles, websites, journal entries, etc. So I thought this aligned nicely with PLO 3, applying practitioner research methods to study and inform instruction in traditional and digital learning environments. And I chose developed and mastered because I've worked on not only researching and practitioner research, but we're kind of in between, and I was in the middle of the program between the developed and mastered stage. So I made use and mastered analyzing multiple references, made use of research methods found in references to formulate strategies, summarize thoughts, findings, and put it all into an APA formatted paper. So just focusing on the artifact itself, my research question was, how do we as instructors foster and promote positive peer relationships amongst English learner students and English speaking students? thought this was really important because a lot of the research I was looking at was just trying to focus on trying to get ELL students to speak better English, lack of better words. And I really wanted to focus on how to make them feel better in the classroom. Again, coming from an SEL standpoint, how can we make students feel more comfortable? How can we make adult learners feel more comfortable? If I was in a different country and I didn't speak the language, what would I want? And that's kind of the things I focus on. So friendships and positive peer working relationships, providing a safe classroom or just a safe space for people to explore these ideas, employing and modeling SEL techniques, modeling communication techniques, and breaking down that language barrier. So how can we do that? Like with games, with group work, with fun activities, with fun videos, with captions. I mean, there's so many ways that we can break the language barrier, but I think that we need to be honest about it and maybe have some fun with it. Like, make it an enjoyable experience for whatever age group we're looking at. All right, so 670, Introduction to SEL. Needless to say, I was very excited to take this. I wish I could have took all the SEL courses. That being said, I was really trying to get a broad spectrum of courses so I could set myself up for a better future, because I don't know what exactly I want to do. I just have goals. So the artifact I selected was a little odd, I will say. It was just a video reflection. It aligned very well with PLO4, developing reflective practices that are grounded in current learning, science, research, professional ethics, and including pathways to continuous growth. So I chose developed and mastered for the reason that I'm still using these prompted questions. So the artifact itself was using generated prompts as we as instructors need to confirm, assess, and analyze our thoughts. It allowed me to provide an opportunity to confront bias, learn about myself as an instructor, confront areas to change and grow, and also allowed for further internal/reflective work that embodied research, ethics, and growth. So some of the questions that were just employed by the instructor were, what did you learn about yourself after completing the module or watching these videos? What information was new? How will you use this knowledge you acquired to shape your professional practice? And once in the field, what steps will you take to guard against implicit bias? I have used these questions since I took this course a couple months ago. I used them after I helped multiple preschool sessions with my kids. I used them after I performed multiple tours of both the wastewater and the water treatment plants. I also did a quick webinar online for fellow wastewater and water chemists, and I used them after that. I think that these questions are really important because they give a basis and they allow you as an instructor to be reflective and, for lack of better words, confront your bias. So, what did you learn about yourself after creating? I was completing this module. Sorry, I confronted my bias. I was excited for learning and creating new memories. What information was new to you after watching these videos? And this is the biggest takeaway that I used, was just the use of language. One woman in one of the videos talked about the word assume or assumption, and everybody has different assumptions, and we all know that. But some people have different assumptions or understand words differently. For example, ELL learners. Or another example is my background is my whole side of my dad's family is all deaf, so we speak ASL. You move your hands a different way, and it is a different word. So this theory of assumption is you can't assume people are saying the same things, or you can't assume that your facial expression is going to be perceived by a student the certain way, or things like that. I think that's really important to focus on, and for us as teachers to be self-reflective and learn from our past experiences is really important. All right, ITL 680, Self as a Critical Thinker. Again, I was really excited to take this because I think critical thinking is so influential in our lives, whether it be thinking about how the world works or how to write a paper. Doesn't matter, it's important. So the artifact I selected was a research compilation in which I was only supposed to review 5, and I reviewed 7 websites, articles, or peer-reviewed journals. And then we had to construct a short summary on the method findings from the article and how it relates to our research question. And my research question was along the lines of how can I explore the ideas of alternative-based learning, such as experience, problem-based, those types of learning strategies, and critical thinking skills to the adolescent age group. I thought that this artifact aligned really well with PLO3 and mastering PLO3, which was applying practitioner research methods to study and inform instruction in traditional and digital learning environments. I included information on how this would help perform the research, methods for higher teaching or adult learners, and information on alternative-based learning techniques. So I picked two of the 7 paragraphs, and the 2 I picked are important. The first one I picked is because the extensive discussion on topics and how to assess students on topics that are difficult, such as creativity, problem-solving skills, motivation, critical thinking skills, things that you can't put a number on, things that are difficult to put a number on. And they really dove into students from different races, different backgrounds, and the author made interesting conclusions on how students who had more real-world experiences really helped their problem-solving skills. And those connections were the connections I was looking for when I was trying to complete this research compilation. The next one I decided to focus on was a journal article, and it really helped me in my personal reflection because it gave pointers, as the previous slide, on how to be reflective after a teaching segment, or let's say a year, whatever you want to look. So how can I succeed in both implementing message and in instructional strategies, but also be sure like my students are enjoying their learning and how they react to me as a teacher. I think that those experiences are really important as a teacher. All right, almost the last class. EDA 641, Leading and Managing Change. I chose this one because I think it's really important that I, again, had a broad range. And like I said in my goals, I want to own my own business. I maybe want to open a preschool. I maybe want to open some sort of adult learning experience that includes the outdoors and STEM. So I wanted to know how I can enact change and how I can be a support for change. So the selected artifact I chose was a consultant review, which was very interesting to perform. Thought it aligned very nicely with PLO4, developing reflective practices that are grounded in current learning science research, professional ethics, and including pathways to continuous growth. I thought I mastered this by performing an extensive review on a current university, Colorado State University in Fort Collins, Colorado. I included in the review the following. So we had a mission statement, which Colorado University really focused on commitment to excellence, setting a standard for public research. They also focused on benefit for citizens of Colorado. So all of these were involved in their statement and strategy. So next we go to university goals, and they didn't really have goals outlined, and that was actually one of my suggestions for the mission statement and strategy. But their goals were in the forms of values. So academic standards, guiding principles, graduation standards, and they also employed ideas such as accountability, acting with integrity, and demonstrating inclusivity and diversity to employ a customer focus. Next, we go to university means. So what I kind of took this as was like, how is the university funded? Mainly government funding, government grants, government funding. They raise tuition, not a whole lot, but they do. And besides that, I couldn't really locate any huge fallbacks. Again, I did as deep of a dive as one allows in a 4-week session, and the results, I know it's not easy for Colorado State to admit their faults, but again, I really couldn't find that many. Measurement. So I took measurement as the university has, guidelines for enrollment. They have guidelines for your academic excellence, just as National University does. For example, in a graduate program, you can't have a below a 3.0. That's not allowed, or it's not acceptable for a graduate degree. Another thing Colorado University really employed, which I value a lot, is the all-core curriculum, AUCC. It's nothing legendary, but they set guidelines roughly based on the core standards from the state of Colorado. And what they do is they just allow and provide a schedule and structure to their college education experience, which I think is important because structure allows for the possibility of growth. Lastly, correction. So correction was my chance to advise on what could be some possible positive outcomes of this. I focused on two things. I focused on graduate school programs in which Colorado University employs many graduate school programs within natural sciences and chemistry, specifically chemistry and what I have experience in. And the focus was all on research and spending time acquiring data and analyzing the data, which is important. There was not a lot of time spent on focusing career-related goals. And I think that students don't know what they want to do and don't know what areas they could get involved in. And to just disregard that seems silly. Lastly, promoting undergraduate research. I really think that they could advance themselves in promoting research in non-STEM environments, such as English, art, music, or even language. Lastly, MAE 670, Applied Practitioner Research and Customized Study. I chose the Practitioner Research Proposal, PLO 1 and 2, and I think I've mastered those. So I'm using generated prompts, and the purpose of this research proposal was to explore the relationship between implementation of alternative-based learning and skills and the measurement of critical thinking skills in adolescent learners. The alternative-based learning I chose to focus on was experimental-based learning, research-based, inquiry-based, problem-based, project-based. What we had to dive into was, what was the question? What's the difference in using inquiry-based, and this is what I chose, that just one of the 5 I chose. What's the difference in using inquiry-based learning and problem-based learning to develop critical thinking skills? The study. The research looks at the comparison of students, so either inquiry-based versus problem-based. Participants, 50 randomly selected students in STEM-based classes. What are the IV and DV? The IV is problem-based and inquiry-based learning, and the DV was critical thinking skills. Findings: the class with inquiry-based learning scored higher on the thermochemistry test, while the students who experienced the inquiry-based learning surpassed problem-based learning students in almost every single category. Next, we have the limitations. Both in IBL and PBL, prerequisites cause limitations in knowledge and understanding, student habits, and skilled literacy. Lastly, implications. So further research I thought could include creating methods to analyze the limitations, such as providing prerequisite knowledge or just helping students with their studying habits. All right, so now we've gone through all of the artifacts and all the PLOs, and we'll just go through a quick summary. So I've highlighted the PLOs, whether I've introduced or whether they've been introduced, developed, or mastered. And as you can see, like I said in the beginning courses are introduced. We get into the developed in the middle, and then we get the mastered at the end. And I think that is really consistent with my learning and how my program went. Alrighty, so we're coming to the end, and just some program highlights. I know I'm talked a little bit more than I should have, probably. My bad. But I really wanted to focus on the program highlights. This program's allowed me to research multiple methods, teaching styles, and strategies in order to be well-rounded, and that's something I really needed to build in order to take the outdoor STEM and our youth and make it my own. Self-reflection on bias, constraints, cultural ideas, I really think that was important. And I also was provided opportunities to create a program for future lessons, classroom involvement, outreach, and teaching. I mastered APA formatting, which was new to me coming from a science background. My writing skills improved, my presentation skills, and also my research skills. I practiced learning strategies and techniques without the possibility of harm. Sim School was really influential and really helped throughout my 4 courses in the beginning of this program. And lastly, it allowed me to find my passion and start my own business. And I'm really happy and really pleased about my experience at National University. So with that, I appreciate you listening to my long presentation, and thank you so much.